Greetings, I am Tom Earl. On this week's episode, I am interviewed by Natasha Bazilevych, and we talk owning your inner power. Check it out. Woo! Greetings, I am Tom Earl, and this is my year of depth. We know you could be anywhere, so the fact that you're here today sharing your greatest gifts, your time and energy means the world to me. I hope you know that in this moment you are valued, you are loved, and you are appreciated just as you are. As you can see, I'm not alone. I have a guest that goes by the name of Natasha Bazilevych. How's it going, Natasha?
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Tom, for having me here.
Yes. So y'all, we got a special interview for you today. The roles are going to be reversed. Actually, I am going to be interviewed by Natasha. I was a guest on Natasha's podcast. We just finished the interview and I asked her, hey, do you mind if I share this interview with my folks? Because I'm going to be honest, this is one of my favorite interviews where I was interviewed. I love how Natasha asked me questions I haven't been asked before. I got to tell some fun stories. For those of you who know me from my spoken word journey, Natasha asked me to do a spoken word poem. Hilarity ensued, but she did get one out of me. So you get to hear some spoken word. And, you know, we really just talked about some awesome things, the power of relationships, marketing, communication. You get to hear some stories about my life that you probably haven't heard before. So Natasha did an awesome job. So that's what you all have to look forward to. Natasha, before we go to your interview, anything that you want to add?
I just wanted to add that this is super exciting and Tom is my coach, you guys, and I was super honored and happy when he agreed to speak on my podcast. So thank you, Tom.
Well, I appreciate that. All right, y'all, without further ado, here we go.
Welcome to Speak with Power podcast, my friends. And today I have an incredible guest. I'm super honored to interview my coach, Tom Earl. You guys, Tom Earl empowers entrepreneurs, creatives, side hustlers, and organizations to share their story so they can make an impact and an income doing what they love. He's the founder of The Celebration Academy and hosts a weekly podcast and video series called The Celebration. Tom was featured by online platforms such as BuzzFeed, Refinery29, Jasmine Star Social Curator, Huffington Post, Now This, and he delivered 2 TEDx talks. Tom, welcome. And
thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
No, because I wanted to jump right in because see, like there are so many things that I want to talk to you about, but I will start with TEDx.
Okay, let's do it. And first of all, thank you for letting me be here. I'm so grateful. I think you're super awesome. So I've been looking forward to this.
Oh, thank you so much. I think you're super awesome. so thank you so much. Thank you for being here. And yes. You know, there are so many people, entrepreneurs, so people who want to start their business or speakers who dream about they dream of speaking on a TED stage or TEDx stage. And you did it twice. So I definitely want to speak to you about that. Now, could you share how did you do that? So what was this journey for you to the TEDx stage? What helped you get there?
So the first one, there's a lesson learned from each of them. The first one really relates to my wife has this phrase where she says, your wealth is your community and your community is your wealth. So really everything comes down to the relationships that you have. And so there was somebody who was putting on a TEDx event around here, and they contacted one of my friends and said, you know, we'd love for you to be a part of this. Do you know anybody else? And so then she reached out to about 4 or 5 of us and said, do you want to be a part of this? And so I said, absolutely. So that first one came in through a friend telling me. And so that's why, you know, oftentimes the people you know really give you those opportunities. Now it's funny because that one was organized with a lot of awesome intention, but on the logistical end, not quite as awesome. So it was done by a high school where high school students put it on, and they didn't really seem to have any faculty support at all. The school didn't really seem to support them at all. And so we really hadn't heard from them. I think it was in May, and, you know, it was April 1st, April 10th, 15th, you know, it's getting closer and closer, and they hadn't confirmed that this was actually going on. And, a part of me had started to think, oh, I secretly hope it gets canceled. And I think we all sometimes feel that when we start to expand, that you think, well, I'm a little scared. What if this? What if that? But I ended up doing it. It was awesome. I loved it. I'm gonna affirm myself that I rocked it. Got great response. It's very interactive. And my wife and my sister were there. And then they shared with me that how they record it for you, the event, that they were using just like this small digital camera, that it died. The battery died right in the middle of mine. And so they were scrambling to put in batteries. They put in the batteries. And so, I don't know, maybe about 5 minutes of it was cut out. So, and they said, oh, we didn't record it because we figured they were. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is devastating. So that was May, and maybe about June, maybe even July. Yeah, it was July. The person who invited me said, I've been reaching out to them and they don't know if they have any of our videos. So it might just be that we all lost the videos from that. And it's an honor to do a TEDx, but if you don't have the video, it's almost like, who believes, you know what I mean? So I said, okay, then I've already gone through this emotional journey of going for it and putting myself out there. And I want to have something tangible to show for it. I want to have that, see my name on the TEDx. So I said, okay, I'm going to find another one to do. And so I looked up online where all the TEDx's were here in LA, and all of them were full except for one. And that was happening at the first week of September. And so this is the second lesson. The person who is the most persistent usually wins. So once again, this one was filled up with people who were all of this person's friends. So I saw that, okay, I don't know this person. So instead what I did is I found her, and I found her LinkedIn, her Instagram, her Facebook, her Twitter, and her email. And on every single one of them, I sent her a message saying, I want to be a part of this so bad. I think I sent that on a Friday. By Monday, she called and said, well, we weren't letting anyone else in, but you got to reward the persistence. So that's where, she said, let's do it. And so the first one was on the awesome power of gratitude. And that second one, we were supposed to do a theme that was contradictory, because I thought, I'll just do the same one over again. She said, no, you can't do that. So it was supposed to be something that sounds contradictory. So then I did my second one on the how conflict is good for you and your relationships. So that's my long-winded answer to your question.
Wow. So 2 lessons. First, you've got to have good community and leverage the community and network with people. And then you will be able to find somebody who curates TEDx and then get there. And second, be persistent.
Yep.
And don't stop. Don't take no for an answer. Hey, but I watched that first one. And somebody, I was watching and I'm thinking, I guess it was just somebody in the audience, because the video was kind of poor, but still I could hear you. You were on fire.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Gratitude.
Thank you.
I knew I thought maybe there were like university, like college students, but they were high school students.
Yeah,
they were super active. And they was like,
the audience was actually mostly adults. It was high school students running it, but the audience was mostly the speakers and our friends. So it was mostly adults that were in the audience.
And they were so, engaged and interacting with you and all those making the noise and stuff. Yeah, it was super exciting to listen to that. And the second one, I haven't finished listening to the second one, but I saw it, how you started, and something distracted me. It was different setting. It's like more serious in a certain way. Yeah, but also really cool. But a better video.
Yes. Yeah. Better video for sure. Mm-hmm. I think the last thing I just say on all that is really just do the prep work. There were some people, and there's no diss to them, who didn't really work on their speech beforehand or have it memorized and it showed, you know what I mean? And so for all of us, when you get an opportunity, put in the work and it'll pay off.
Yeah. Well, what could you say to people who are still thinking? Actually, I'm working on my speech for TEDx, and yeah, I've already contacted several different curators, and I'm going to even hire somebody to work on my TEDx speech. But and I know a lot of people, a lot of listeners, I'm sure, are thinking about this. I know specific names that are planning this. So my question to you, as also a person who helps people with marketing and content marketing, and you are great at that. I know that you're teaching me how to write stories and even the content for video. You are writing your speech. So what's your best advice for those people who are writing a TEDx speech or any kind of speech?
Well, and this is my own lesson learned from the two I did, is make things as interactive and experiential as you can. So get the audience involved. Nobody likes to just be lectured to. So if you can find a way to draw the audience in, and one good way to do that is with storytelling. So usually the way we do it, that I have people set up, what they're going to do is, the TEDx, you get about 15, 16 minutes. So maybe you can make 2 to 3 really good points. So for each point you're going to make, you need to have something experiential where people can have their own aha moment, right? So if you're going to say, everybody, if your takeaway is everybody should prepare when you get in, let's do the 3 ones that I said. Let's say your 3 takeaways are going to be power of relationships, be persistent, and then do the preparation. Let's say those are your 3 big things you want to share. Then you need to figure out a story you're going to use for each of those, or an analogy, or some sort of activity that you can do with people sitting down, right? You can't be like, everybody stand up. And that's going to take 15 minutes in and of itself. So if you can use a story, an activity, an analogy, a symbol, something where people can put themselves in the shoes of the experience. And then they can, because when people hear your own story, they're going to put their own experience in it. And then they can go, I get what the takeaway message is before you have to say it. So if you can do that, you're going to allow people to really experience it in a different way. So that'd be my advice. And then practice the heck out of it. And one of the things, the best ways to practice something when you're going to do it from some sort of memory is to recite it while you're multitasking. So for example, I'm a spoken word poet. And when I would memorize my poems, the way I would confirm that I really have them memorized is if I could do it while I was driving, if I could do it while I was parallel parking, if I could do it while I was doing the dishes, something that requires your attention. Because if you just practice it when you're just in a room and it's just you, you're able to give your full concentration to it. But when you're live, someone's going to be coughing. Someone might get up and go to the bathroom during your speech. Someone might make a noise. People, you might be anticipating that they're going to be like, this is awesome. And people might just be really taking you in, but with a very serious face. And so if you then start thinking, oh, they don't like me, or, oh, this isn't going well, or any of those things, it's going to distract you. And so if you practiced it from a distracted place, if you could practice it while parallel parking, then you're going to be able to deliver it from even when you're distracted as well.
That's awesome. I haven't thought of that because I practice, but mainly when I practice and rehearse, I focus on the speech. But it's great that you just do something that would distract you. And have you ever had a moment, especially in your experience before you started the agency, when you were doing your performances? You said how did you call yourself? Spoken word?
Spoken word.
Poet?
Yeah.
Spoken word poet.
Yeah.
So like you would go, I remember you telling you would go on stages and you would speak poems, recite poems. It was kind of funny. Was it a little bit like comedic as a comedian, or not always? No.
Mostly political.
Okay.
Yeah, they're very activist centered.
Cool. So have you ever had a moment when you forgot?
Yes. I've only had one moment where I forgot at a time when it mattered. So there's this thing called Southern Fried. It's a Southeastern poetry competition. So for people who don't know, slam poetry is you get 3 minutes to deliver your poem. Oh my gosh, it's been so long. I think you get a 10-second delay too. So you basically get 3 minutes and 10 seconds. I could be wrong on that. But basically for every 5 seconds you go over the time, you lose points. And what happens is at the end of your performance, there's 5 judges and they score you on a basis of 10 points. And then you drop the highest and the lowest. And so you're left with the 3 in the middle. But if you go over your time, they subtract points from it as a penalty. Okay. So then you usually go against, I don't know, let's say 5 to 10 other people. And there's 3 rounds, and they drop people each round until there's only 3 people left on the last round. Then you all go again. And so you have to have 3 poems prepared. So with the Southern Fried, what you do is you're actually on teams of 4 or 5, and you compete against other teams, and you go 3 rounds. So you can either go up and do a team piece where you all perform a piece together, or you can decide of your 4 or 5 people, who do you want to send up each round? So it was very detailed. So anyways, our team ended up making it to final stage, and we made it to final stage against people who had way more experience than us. We were kind of the underdogs. And so I was on stage. It was my turn. I mean, it's this huge room. There was probably like 1,000 people in there, and all these people you respect, right? And I was doing my poem that I was known for at the time, and I got to one part, and I just like, I don't know, the mood, the moment just overwhelmed me for a sec, and I paused for like a half a second. And only if you knew me did you notice that I paused. But in half a second, I caught where I was. So. But one thing that we would do with our poems is we'd have a coach, and our coach would make us start at random parts in the poem. Oh, so they'd be like, start here. So we would learn how to perform at, if it's a 3-minute poem, we would learn how, if they'd say, start at this word, they had your words in front of you, start here. And then you should be able to do your poem from there, or start here. Or while you're performing, your coach would throw things at you, or your team would do things. So, we trained like crazy.
Wow.
So by the time you were on stage, it was, we were pretty practiced. So I'm not saying I didn't ever make a mistake. That was probably the only time I can think of where it mattered, where I messed up.
Because I was going to say, when it's a speech and you forgot, that you can just skip that moment and keep going. But with the poem, it's harder because it has to be, rhyme and everything. But I guess when you practice like that, then you could skip 2 lines and then get to another one or something, I guess. You would.
Sorry, no, you go for it. What were you saying?
No, I was going to say that, or did you have to remember everything so well that you wouldn't skip any lines, because also it's timed and it's super important.
By the time I was competing, when I would compete with the poem, I just knew it.
Okay. Guys, that's an example of practicing.
Yes.
The power of practice.
But I do have dreams all the time where I'll forget my poems.
Could you share an example, like at least a little piece of a poem? Do you remember? Do you still remember?
Okay, let me see. Let's see here. I haven't been performing my poems very often. Let's see if I remember this one. Here we go. I got one. Have you ever had reason to believe that you're in the presence of a demon? What comes next? Oh my gosh, this is terrible.
Sorry, I put you on the spot like that. Yeah, you can just read a piece to us.
Okay, let's see here. White Jesus wakes up in the morning and talks to God in American. He yawns like a tiger, combs his long blonde hair, carefully applies his Axe body spray, looks at his reflection shimmering back at him in the mirror, and says, God damn it, you look good, White Jesus. Gets through with his morning pep talk, looks at his red, white, and blue themed calendar, and sees the reminder that tomorrow is his birthday. Now, most people think he was born on the 25th, even though he insists that's not the day angels announced my presence, nor was it the time 3 wise men gave me expensive but totally inappropriate presents. Let's see here. And so when his solar return does roll around, no one's there to wish him a happy birthday. Life is rough for White Jesus. Now, just to clarify, before this offends anyone, because God knows that's not what I want to do. When we're talking about Jesus the Nazarene, the son of Mary, or what we can call historical Jesus, he may or may not be real, and it all depends upon your personal belief system, which I 100% respect and support you in. This poem is not about that guy. As are all things, this is about a white guy named White Jesus. And as we all know, it's historically and inaccurately impossible for Jesus to look like some European blonde-haired, blue-eyed looking dude. I mean, tell me, who do you know from the Middle East that actually looks like that? But I can understand how people get confused. What with upstanding and reliable sources of information like Fox, reassuring children that both Jesus and Santa are 100% real. But White Jesus, of course, doesn't see color. And he believes that if you talk about race, it actually makes you a racist. But the game's on and it's Sunday. And furthermore, it's his birthday. So let's get back to that. The birth of white Jesus was not immaculate. He didn't like the whole idea of a man not being required for conception. No, white Jesus is 100% the creation of men. White Jesus thinks that we all bleed red and that talking about race makes you a racist. And he teaches that technically you don't need to say white every time you say Jesus. It's more of a silent white. You only need to add the descriptor for those who are darker. But really, can't we all just be human? Human like Jesus? I mean, why does this even matter? Picture this. On Saturday, white slave masters would read biblical proverbs to justify the use of torture and whips they'd use to rip the flesh of exposed black backs, each lash guided by the hand of a God who on Sunday, slave master and enslaved alike would be forced to worship and hear how master must not spare the rod on servants. Scriptures reinterpreted to meet the needs of servants. But let's be realists. White supremacist American values feel less religious and wholesome when the gods you look like when the God you worship looks the same as those you suffocate in bondage. No, for this to work, Jesus must be white. Otherwise, good Christian white folk might not feel so right if the God they pray to looks like those whose blood and pain makes the things they use every day, things like iPhones, TVs, clothes, and gasoline. Oops, I jumped ahead a couple generations. I mean, cotton, tobacco, and sugarcane. No, for this to work, Jesus must be white. He can't be black. He can't be brown. He can't be Asian. Otherwise, nuclear weaponry just doesn't have the same ring. He can't be from the Middle East. Otherwise, how could we justify bombings for oil? Jesus can't be a Jew. Otherwise, how would you justify our standing by during the Holocaust? He can't have an accent. He can't be Bosnian, Somalian, Burmese. He can't be a poor. He can't be a woman. He can't be LGBTQ. Just pause and think for a minute. If the God that we pray to look just like those that we oppress and describe as uglier and inferior, how long do you think this system would last? Either we'd have to get a new system or we'd have to get a new God. And so we did. White Jesus was born. I once heard and did my research and looked back and learned that the further you go back in history, the darker and more feminine God gets. But white Jesus, he don't even break a sweat. He carefully applies his Axe body spray one more time and has to admit he smells pretty damn good. And he feels good too, perfectly content to spend the rest of his days in total oblivion. I mean, why stir things up when everything has been created to honor and benefit him?
Wow.
That's an example.
You got on fire there. Especially then in the middle, I could feel how, so that's how you do it, especially when you're on the stage, right? And you're like, da, 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 and you get into, have you ever had people, well, I guess if it's this kind of stuff, so everybody is in this mentality, this thinking, but have you ever had anybody object or say so, not like what you or other people say and like their poems? If it's like controversial, for them. Have you
controversial, like talking about white Jesus?
No, like since I understand that you speak about different
things. It's very controversial.
Yeah.
Okay, so two different audiences. In person, not necessarily. We'll pause on that one. Online, absolutely. I mean, there's people who are going to hear that who are like, what? I mean, white Jesus is a big thing here, especially in the States. I mean, that's a poem. I know white supremacy is global, but that was a very America-centered poem. Yeah. Now, I do have a lot of poems that talk about racism. And so I have performed poems in the Deep South where, for the most part, everybody in the audience is black and I'm the only white guy. And so there's the moment of like credibility or trust. So kind of like usually when a white guy talks about race, especially in the context of the South, and I know you have a very European audience, so this is a very kind of American thing. So, in the South,
I have a lot of audience from the US, by the way.
Okay.
And Canada.
So if you give context, usually a white guy on stage about to talk about race usually is going to say something racist. And so there's a moment of, oh, he's talking about something anti-racist. So there's like a period of buy-in that has to, I have a poem about Abraham Lincoln where it's like, I say, Abraham Lincoln did not set a single slave free. Study the slave revolts in Haiti. Now that's liberty. And then I start to talk about Harriet Tubman and stuff like that. So a poem like that can be a hit or miss because some people are like, I don't know if I want to hear this from you. So, so it's kind of just like having self-awareness that I'm a white guy talking about anti-racism and understanding that there's baggage I come with being a part of a group of people, white people, specifically white men, that I benefit from white privilege and also benefit from the institutional white supremacy. And so knowing that now I'm going to be talking about a poem calling these things out, you just got to be self-aware of how you might be perceived. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And the same with every speech. Like anybody who makes a message, who gives a speech, you have to always keep in mind who's in the audience and how are they going to perceive this and what if they object. And especially in the US, I know that it's very important, the language, the words that people are using. And sometimes I'm thinking, oh, what if I say the wrong word? Because even, for example, in Europe, we don't really even think that much about these certain words. And like in the US, it's like, you're not supposed to say this. And then 5 years later, it's okay to say this, but you're not supposed to say it that way. And we all have to be like speakers, and people who need to speak for their business need to be very careful.
So this is why I have nightmares where I forget my poems, because I have forgotten my poems. And I know someone's going to say, let me hear one of your old poems. And exactly what happened now, I'm only going to remember like barely the first word. So this is just the universe's message of saying, practice some of those poems every now and again, Tom. Bring them back into memory.
Or have one somewhere, like on a piece of paper, always ready. If somebody asks you, you just have it so that you could share. Now, I wanted to ask you, called your company and the academy The Celebration.
Yeah.
Why?
Why is it abbreviated?
Abbreviated, and even the word celebration. So what did you put into that when you were creating your business?
So I've been in punk rock bands for most of my life since I was, 11 or 12. And so what you call the band name is always a thing. And so there was a point when I went to college where that band broke up, the one I was in from high school. So I was trying to figure out what's the next band that I'm going to be in. What is it going to be called? And so I came up with, and it was actually, this is funny, it was actually in this class I wrote in called Mass Marketing and Media. Little did I know that marketing was going to become my thing. I did not know that at the time. So I was ignoring the teacher and thinking of band names. And I came up with The Celebration. I was like, wow, that's really awesome. And so right then I knew that I had this dream where that was going to be the band name. I was going to have The Celebration Productions. It's going to be this whole thing. And the are also my initials. So I was thinking, oh, we can make it that. I'll have the part stand for a bunch of different things. So it also means to higher elevations. It's just the can become its own thing. So that's where way back then when I was 18, I knew. So I had a band for a little bit called The Celebration, but like all college bands, it dissipated. But then I knew when I was going to start the podcast and my online school and my agency, The Celebration came back to life. And so the podcast is The Celebration, the school is The Celebration Academy, the Celebration Media is the agency, our creative content's The Celebration Production. So, it took almost 15 years, but it was resurrected.
Awesome. And so what's your name? Tom H. Earl. So what's an H?
Harold.
Yeah. Nice.
And I'm a junior. So my dad's Thomas Harold Earl. I'm Thomas Harold Earl. And we were named after two people, Thomas and Harold, that my grandpa fought in the Korean War with.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And such a great name. Like the last name is so awesome. Earl.
Thank you.
Sounds great. Yeah. I think this is genius. Just the way you called your whole company and agency and school and podcast, everything. So why marketing? How did you get to that from poems and band music and everything?
So my lifelong goal that I'm always striving towards, even if it doesn't look like it, is I want to have a number one song in the entire world. So I want to be pop culture, pop music. That's my goal. So I've been in music. Have you heard of the band Korn? Korn?
Okay. Yeah, it still sounds familiar, but
they're a heavy metal band. So back in the day, they had this song called "Freak on a Leash." That was a song that everybody knew back when TRL. Did you watch TRL on MTV?
No.
We might be from a different generation. I think I'm realizing this.
we are. I'm from a little older generation.
Oh, I was thinking you were younger.
No, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Okay.
How old are you?
How old am I? 33.
Well, I'm 43.
Okay.
Yes.
You're my wife's generation. My wife just turned 43. So you're
Oh,
her
really?
generation.
Cool.
So, okay. So I heard this band Korn, and I knew as soon as I heard them, at the time I wanted to be an eye doctor. I knew I wanted to be in a rock and roll band. That's what I knew. And so ever since then, that has been my goal. And so without realizing it, I was having to learn marketing at a young age to get the music out there. So at the time, marketing looked like getting all of my friends to come by harassing them. You need to come to my show. You need to come to my show. You need to come to my show. And then I started to learn about, as the internet came about, MySpace. We need to be up on MySpace. We created a website. I created a website my first website when I was 12 for my band Nefarious. So I created this website for the band, wrote the bio, all of this stuff. And then when I was about, 25, 26, so a few years ago, it changed when I came to Los Angeles, because in Wisconsin and even in the town of Florida I was in, you could very much use word of mouth to build a following. The difference is, so let's say I do a show in Florida, which is where I did most of my spoken word. You would see, if you perform, I was performing maybe 5-6 days a week, I would see almost the same people at every show for the most part. In LA on a given night, there might be 50 poetry events happening on the same exact night. And so you usually don't see the same people ever again. You perform once, you're probably never going to see those people again. It's just so huge. And the competition is also way bigger, right? Small town in Wisconsin, we're one of a couple bands. Smaller town, Tampa is not the smallest, but I pretty much knew almost every poet, right? In LA, that's impossible. So I had to figure out what I was doing is I learned about the email list. So I would perform, and while I was performing, I'd hand around literally a spiral notebook. Usually I do it, if let's say I was performing 5 poems, I do it after my second poem where people thought this was cool. So I'd literally hand to the person in the front row, write down your name and email if you want to be added to my list. And then they hand to the next person, the next person, the next person, the next person. And it ended up in the back, and I'd have to find who had it. And then I'd manually enter 100 emails into MailChimp. And I used to just do that all the time, every single show. And so then I realized, with Facebook ads, if I put out a video for a few dollars, I can get, instead of 100 people seeing me tonight, I can get 1,000 people to see me. And then I can also just retarget them just with the algorithm. I don't have to run around and chase everybody and just stay in front of them. Mm-hmm. And so I started to realize, also with LA, I would be driving because of traffic an hour to each show through bumper to bumper traffic. And I just started to think, this is maybe back in 2015, I want to start doing everything online. So I actually moved my open mic to online. I started doing online performances. This is back before the pandemic. I just knew I have to start doing everything online. So a parallel track is I also was doing leadership development. So I was trained in anti-bias leadership development, how to make your community, your classroom, anti-bias inclusive. And so I was also doing all of these leadership skills and doing leadership trainings all of the time. And so I got really passionate then about facilitation and leadership. And so I then learned about Brendan Burchard and the Experts Academy and how, you can actually make a living online by selling your knowledge. So that's when I started the Celebration Academy to teach people leadership skills. And so then I wanted to learn not just how to market my music, but how to market my leadership school. And so then I started learning all of these things. How do I market the leadership school? And then from learning that, I found, wow, I'm actually really good at marketing. And so then I started teaching people marketing and social media marketing specifically. Mm-hmm. And so then y'all are getting the full story. And so then I was in a Facebook group, and you would post jobs. Hey, I need this. And so people would say, hey, I need a social media marketer. And maybe 20 people would post. And so I thought, wow, I do not like that competition. And so I started noticing in that group, there was no experts in this group on how to be an expert in paid traffic, Facebook ads, YouTube ads. So I thought, I'm already pretty good at Facebook ads. Let me just become an expert at this. And so then I switched from teaching people how to do social media marketing to paid marketing. And so it differentiated me and started getting way more work. And so then I just went all in on that. So, but if I tie it back, it's always been communication. Everything comes down to communication. That's all marketing is, communicating your ideas in a way that moves and engages people.
But how did you learn about Facebook marketing or Facebook ads? Did you learn it by yourself, just by doing it, trying it? You saw that, or you actually learned from somebody else?
I spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on courses. So I took a couple courses that were, you just learn it. But then I took a course that was really expensive, where it's the first time I had to put something, on a credit card where I didn't actually have the money. And the whole program of it was to teach you how to actually run a Facebook ads agency. And that was August of 2019. And so from August until January of 2020, I learned how to build the team, how to, do sales calls, how to run the ads, all of that kind of stuff. And so I built out my whole team, did a bunch of interviews. And so by February, the agency was ready to go. And then by March, COVID hit and everybody wanted to go online and go digital. And so I was just positioned, boom, from those years of work, it just worked out perfect.
And I remember your story that there were so many people that you couldn't even have as many clients. So you had to change something about your business, right?
Yep. So I learned, this is for everybody. When you finally, and this is for all of us. So if you think I started trying to make money, maybe 2014 online, I didn't really make serious money till 2020. So my account was even like, you got to make money eventually. Otherwise the IRS is going to consider this a hobby. It's like, thanks. This is a good pep talk. So 2020 is when it all came together. So, I was iterating and changing and pivoting. But for all of us, when it finally hits and you start getting a bunch of customers, now the problem becomes, how do you make sure what made you special doesn't get watered down? And you don't, and really, this is what there's a phrase, logistics wins wars. Logistics wins or loses businesses. So that's when I realized, oh, wow, now I have to start, it started to become a logistical nightmare. So we actually had to stop taking clients, and it's been awesome. I love that stuff. I'm such a nerd for logistics and admin and systems and putting that stuff in place. So it was a blast.
Oh yeah. And it's exciting. I think it's like almost, I would say, everybody's dream or every entrepreneur's dream to get to the point when you have too many clients. But of course, it's also a challenge, because then you have to put systems in place and change things, a lot of things about your business. But like at first it sounds exciting. Oh, to have too many clients so that you don't even know what to do with them. That sounds great.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go. Because I was going to change the subject a little bit.
You'd think so. But it really becomes a mindset thing, because you are now letting people down as you, right? So we've all dropped the ball as an employee, right? But in the end of the day, we care, but it's not us, right? We're replaceable at any job. I don't mean that as a diss, but when it's your name. And also the other thing is, people were spending so much money for us to run their ads. That was the other thing. So, it's a stressful time. It's COVID. So a lot of these people are in a do or die situation. They're putting their money on the line. So I'm putting my reputation on the line. When something goes wrong, it's really hard to not get into a shame spiral. I suck. This sucks. Who did I think I am? I'm letting people down. So you're not really in the place of, but finally I'm doing this full time. It's like, that's kind of like, you're thinking it's all going to crash and burn. So where we are now is finally where I'm able to say I'm living the dream. We've got into such a better place. So now I feel that even, Nikki, one of our team members. We were texting back and forth like, wow, this is what, the dream. We're finally here. So once we got those systems in place, then we could say we're here.
Yeah. And it's like, there are so many questions that I would want to ask, but I think I will ask you some other time of what is the best advice for building a team, because you do have a great team. Like Nikki, I love Nikki, but I have a different question now. So you have a phrase, what you say that you're obsessed with marketing. You say, I'm obsessed with marketing, so you don't have to be.
Yes.
It's what you're saying to your clients. What do you mean by that?
I think so. There's this phrase by this famous Japanese author that's basically, when you know the path, you see it in all things. And I apologize, I don't know who said it. When you know the path, you see it in all things. So when you become obsessed with one thing, you will see it everywhere. So let's say the color blue is your thing. You will see shades of blue everywhere, right? It's for example, when you purchase a car, you all of a sudden see that car everywhere and you didn't see it before. Or when you buy a dress or an outfit, something you think is very unique and somebody else is wearing it, you just hone in on it. That's my dress. That's my. So when I am obsessed with marketing, I see marketing in everything. So I'm talking to somebody on the phone and they will have said something to me in a way it has nothing to do. They're not trying to sell me anything. And I'll think, wow, that was really good marketing. You did a good sales job there. They'll be like, what? I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm like, no, that's just very persuasive. And so then my mind will then start to analyze what were the mechanics that they used to execute that. Even if we were just having a conversation. So I'm watching something on TV that has nothing to do with marketing and they'll say something and I will realize, oh, that was really good marketing, or, oh, I can use as an analogy to teach somebody something about marketing. And so it's just always on my mind. Everything I see comes through that filter. Now, that's one of my top 3 passions, right? In terms of outside of, God, my family, my mental health. So in terms of my professional life, marketing is one of my top 3 passions. Most of the people I work with, their top 3 passions are going to be the thing their business is actually on. So for example, yours, you help people to give the best speeches, to deliver the best ever, right? That's your obsession. That is not my obsession. That's your obsession. What it means is that marketing is not your number one obsession. So you're not going to be as good at marketing as I am, but I'm not going to be as good at getting people to give speeches as you are. But you need to get people to hear about you so that you can make the impact in their life. So you can leverage my obsession for marketing to bypass all of the learning that I had to do to get here and borrow all of these analogies and ways I found that, hey, I can teach you this thing in a very short period of time because I'm also a good teacher. So that's why you can leverage my obsession as your own.
I love that because that's a dream of every entrepreneur, to finally stop being the Jack and Jane of all trade, but become a person who can delegate, outsource, and do something that you actually are passionate about. I am passionate about teaching, about speaking, about coaching and training. I'm not that passionate about marketing and advertising and sales and stuff. And how do you differentiate, by the way? So we have advertising and marketing. Is this the same thing or is it different? Marketing and sales, how are those different? How would you explain that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there's somebody who's like really into words and would be like, they are not the same. I just consider them all under the same umbrella. Okay. Just different strategies for marketing.
Yeah, because like what you're saying, when people are just talking, telling you something that maybe they liked, and they're not even selling, but you're saying, "Oh, this is really cool marketing. You just sold it to me." Sold, quotes, but they were not even trying, and that could be the best kind of marketing and sales, is when you're doing it naturally and people believe you and you persuade them just because you are passionate, because you share with such love. So I think it all comes back to understanding human psychology, then learning how to communicate in a way where you can impact somebody emotionally and build a relationship with them as quickly as possible. That's marketing. So I can understand what is going to emotionally move you. I can communicate in a way where I actually then execute on doing that.
And it builds a relationship super quickly, because if you're selling anything, whether it's an idea, I believe that these people should be treated, with equity. I believe that this law should be passed. I think this person should be elected president. Whether you're selling that idea, whether you're selling a service, whether you're selling a product, the only reason people buy from anybody or they vote for anybody is because they believe it, right? And we believe people we have relationships with. So the quicker and deeper you can build that relationship, that's really the game right there.
So how do you understand this human psychology, or what people really want when you just met, maybe, or when you're talking to somebody and you've had some time and you want to persuade them, you want to market to them? So what do you have any tricks or tips?
Well, I would say for the most part, if we're talking about sales, right? Or if we're talking about moving people, that for the most part, the people you're talking to are going to fall into boxes. Now, everybody's their own individual, so I'm not trying to force people into a box. But already, if we're saying you're an entrepreneur, that is a box. So we can already have thought ahead of time about what are the wants and hopes and desires and struggles and unsolved problems of an entrepreneur versus somebody who's a Fortune 100 CEO. Those two boxes are going to have different hopes and wants and desires and feelings, right? So then if I also say, well, I actually work with entrepreneurs, this is me personally, who are more mission driven. So you're rarely going to find anybody in our program who is this like capitalism is the thing I love the most about what I'm doing. Like making the money. I don't care how I make it. I just want to make money. I'm not saying that's bad. You're just not going to find most of our folks that I work with I just want to make an impact. And then they usually need help with making the money part. So now I can kind of segment it down already. Well, I can already then from past experience know about what are the hopes and wants and desires and struggles and unsolved problems of not just an entrepreneur, but an entrepreneur who is mainly driven through their mission, right? And so if we kind of take a step back though, what I'm able to start to infer are, what are your values? What is the identity you have? What moves your ego? What keeps you up at night? What do you dream about when you're in a quiet room? And then there's other things we can pull from. So at the same time, most of the folks in our program are also women or identify as women or non-binary. So they're usually not like, we usually don't work with, and it's not because we don't want to, but we usually don't work with a lot of like hyper aggressive, super masculine, straight white guys that love capitalism, right? So I'm able to now infer what are the unique struggles that you go through as a woman entrepreneur in this world that we live in. And so like I can start to further and further have a cheat sheet that I can start with, right? But now to get to you, the individual, the way that I figure that out, the way I build the relationship is by listening, is not by talking. And so you just start with some questions, and it's through trial and error that you find these are the kind of questions that if you kind of say these sequentially, people will open up to you. And so if you listen, the person who listens the most wins. If I can listen, you will tell me what you want to hear to say yes. If I'm using all of these other things that I've inferred. But you got to be a student of human psychology. So for all of us, can you name what are the 2 greatest or 3 greatest fears that almost every single person has that has been institutionalized by like Western thinking? What are the 3 greatest fears that we all have?
Or it's like rejection and judgment, something like that, failure.
Yeah, all those. I'd say those. A huge one. Am I worthy? Am I enough? Will I be loved? I mean, that's for most of us. We're spending most of our life trying to prove our worthiness, trying to prove that we're lovable. And usually most of our stuff's coming from that. So if you could just kind of then build, okay, well, why do we feel that way? So the more you can kind of like learn these things through listening to Brene Brown or Bell Hooks or these kind of things, you just add to your toolbox of understanding.
To just study it. Yeah. Listen, books and videos and TED Talks and stuff like this. So you're this wonderful individual with such great values. It's inclusion and vulnerability. I love that. And courage and passion. And you are an activist. So it's easy for you to speak up, to say what you think, and you share it actively and openly. And I wonder how we could help, because I love that too. I always have been a person that I'll just say what I think to people. And if I don't like something, I say it. But I know a lot of people who don't. And for example, Speak with Power. I called this not just because I want to help people, entrepreneurs, to share their message and to give powerful presentations, but also I really would love to help those people who have opinions, but they don't really share them. So I would love them to speak up with power. I even have this dream of starting a show one day of when people just share what they wanted to share, but they never did. So have you ever had this moment when you couldn't share, but then like something changed? Or were you always a person that it was easy for you to just speak your mind? Was there a transition or never?
Well, yeah, I mean, I had a really tough childhood. And so there were times where I felt disempowered, where my power was taken, all those kind of things. And so then my outlet became punk rock. And punk rock is just pure screaming. So I think that really helped, that I had an outlet. And there are definitely circumstances and times where I feel the fear is greater, right? So I think to make it for other folks, that for all of us, and this is what I had to do for myself, is we have to go back and understand, where does this fear come from? Where does my not wanting my light to shine come from? I know for me, there was a time in 2015, going into 2015, where it was actually from 2015 to 2016, New Year's Day. I was going through a workshop, Brennan Burchard again, and I realized I was also doing a lot of work listening to Brene Brown and Iyanla Vanzant, and realizing, wow, I really am afraid of rejection and ridicule. Like, I really want to be loved. And so I was looking for love as an approval thing. Love is approval. Love is praise. And so I had to unpack what actually is love, right? And so one of the things is, love doesn't ridicule. So if somebody's going to ridicule me, it's not love. It has nothing to do with me. And so, or like what is called the 4 agreements. Is that how many agreements there are? Can't remember how many agreements there are. 5 agreements. One of them is like, it's not about you. And so like, I just started stacking these tools to realizing, wow, I am really holding myself back because of blank, 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 blank. So then when I can start to understand from an emotional place, this is where my own self-oppression is coming from, it's always external. This is where it's coming from. This is then what I do is, one of my strengths is discipline. So I then say, I make a rule. Okay, every Thursday by 5 p.m., I'm going to put out a video no matter what. I have something within me that does not want to face myself at 5:01 having said, I didn't do it this week because I was too afraid. That motivates me, that even no matter how scared I am, no matter how terrible the video is, I will put it out because I committed to myself. That is something that I have. And so then I just started to do it every day. And then it got easier with time. Mm-hmm. That being said, I'm a white guy living in America. And so I have been told since I was little, we want to hear what you have to say. We want to hear what you have to say. There's a great book, Untamed. Glennon Doyle wrote it, where she really unpacks, sexism and how women are told to be small, to shrink themselves, to only speak for approval. She really unpacks it. So, a book like that, even for me listening, is like, wow, this is so insightful. If you're not already, if you're feeling afraid of your own power, afraid of your own voice, surrounding yourself with people like that. So we mentioned Glennon Doyle, Brene Brown, Iyanla Vanzant. Those kind of folks will start to give you a mirror to say, like, this is the behavior. This is where it comes from. This is how to unlock it. And so it's really an emotional journey. You can't always just rah through it, but really starting to identify, where does this come from, and getting intellectually and emotionally curious about that. Therapy is awesome. So, therapists, if you have access to one.
Yeah,
Did that answer
always.
your question?
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of people think that going to a therapist is like weakness, or somehow it's beneath them, or they don't want to tell anybody that they went to a therapist. Yeah, I worked with several, and I actually think that it's really cool because each one of them helped me in a certain way in different situations. I think it's growth is when we.
Yeah. I mean, so we're like produced emotionally in a way that benefits the system, right? So if the system wants men to be in charge, so if women continue to not speak, that's good for the system. And men, we're supposed to be dominant assholes because that's good for the system, right? And there's not supposed to be any in between, right? There's not supposed to be non-binary, gender's not supposed to be a spectrum. That is not good for the system. We need clear lines of power and all this kind of stuff. So therapy is talk shit about, because we will start to unpack this system. We will start to unpack these invisible and visible, explicit and implicit things that shape us into these fake versions of ourselves. So we continue to perpetuate, to our own detriment, these systems of power. So that's why people don't like therapy, because therapy is going to unpack those things, and that's bad. We want to keep them packed nice and neat. So really, and it's just catching ourselves when I say therapy sucks. Oh, where did that come from? Who benefits the most from me remaining emotionally boxed? Not you. Yeah. That's for damn sure.
And it's uncomfortable, of course, when you try to unpack something and when you start changing it. Awesome. Well, Tom, before I ask you one of my favorite questions, I want you to tell us, you have an incredible gift for us, right? So you have this free Facebook Ads Bootcamp. Could you talk a little bit about it?
Yes. So we put together for folks. I know we didn't get a chance to talk about Facebook ads explicitly too much, which I kind of enjoy. I think what we talked about today was really awesome. I enjoyed the heck out of what we talked about.
I think we did a little bit. Yeah, we just didn't go into the details of Facebook ads, but people saw that, that.
Yes.
That's what you teach.
And which is good, because some folks, you got out of this what you were meant to get out of this. But for those of you who have a mission, have something that you want to say, or maybe you're sick of posting every day on Instagram and Facebook and one or two people like it, and you're kind of sick of all the time you put out of it and not getting any reward, we use a process called the Retargeting Runway. It's what we've developed for our clients, and we now want to make it accessible to you. And really, it uses that power of, for even just $1 a day, if you're put on a video for $1 a day, you're going to get engagement that's very targeted. Versus when you put things out with just hashtags, anybody can view those hashtags. You can put on an ad that speaks directly to your ideal person. And then what you can do, even with the iOS changes and all this kind of stuff, you can then retarget that person and continue building that relationship. So we have a Facebook Ads Bootcamp that's 2 parts. The first part, it shows you how to think like a marketer, because I don't want you to follow our system blindly. I want you to understand from a strategic place what it means to actually market from a psychological standpoint, so that you can then problem solve your own stuff. But then after you have that underneath your belt, then we actually show you the system step by step that we use to run our own ads, to run the Retargeting Runway. So tomearl.me/FB ads, tomearl.me/FB stands for Facebook, FB ads. That's where you can get it 3 times. Is always the charm. tomearl.me/FB ads. You can sign up and let me know you came from here, and we'll send you a special thank you.
And I will definitely put the link in the description. So you guys go into the description of the episode and click on the link, because I can tell you, I'm a part of Tom's program, and it's been super eye-opening, because years ago when I just started, I tried Facebook ads and I lost so much money just because I didn't really know the system. I didn't understand the algorithm. I was just doing it by myself and trying so many different things. And then when I got into the program, and I'm in the paid program, so you get the chance to just get a lot of stuff for free also. So you definitely should join, because when I started learning from Tom, it was Like, really? Wow. So that's how it works. It's like a totally different system. This is absolutely different from what I saw it from even when I read the tutorials and what Facebook explains to you. You can't really learn it. So don't even think like it's a no-brainer. You have to click on that link and join the bootcamp for sure. Thank you so much, Tom. Yeah.
Of course.
Facebook ads is like, it's like a different world. People think that they don't need it, that you can do organic reach, which is wonderful. I've been doing organic reach for a while, but then you get to the point when you are ready for Facebook ads, for outsourcing and scaling. So then this is golden for you.
I appreciate that.
Awesome. And Tom, let me ask you and paint a picture for you. You are standing in front of the whole world. Maybe it's a virtual stage, but the whole world is listening to you and you have 60 seconds. So what will you say to the world?
I would say you can get my free Facebook ads training. I don't know if I was in front of the whole world for 60 seconds. I would want to somehow like be able to have some sort of instrument that would translate everybody talking at one time. I would want to hear what people are saying. And I'm not saying that so it makes me look cool, but I would be much more interested in the data of getting to hear every single person in the entire world for 60 seconds than be able to tell them something. That just because that's selfish. I would get so much out of that. So let me think if I can remix this question. What would be the question? This is what I want to ask them. If I could know the answer, what makes you come alive? That's what I'd want to know. What makes you come alive?
Nice. This is so different. Wow. From you're such a unique human being. Like everybody answers what they would want to say, but you want to hear. You would actually want to ask them. What makes you come alive is you would ask them?
Yeah, what makes you come alive? So the Howard Thurman quote, what is it? Don't ask what the world needs. Instead, ask what makes you come alive, because what the world really needs is people who are alive.
Ooh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe I'd say that. If I was to follow the rules, I'd say that.
Yeah. Don't ask people what they need, but ask them.
Yeah, don't ask what the world needs.
What the world needs, yeah.
Yeah.
Because the world needs more people who are alive. Oh, I love that. Thank
Maybe
you
I'd
so
say,
much.
Hip, hip. And then ready to go, hooray! Hip, hip. I do something interactive. Hooray!
Yeah, you guys should go and watch Tom's TEDx, especially with the younger one. It's something young something. It says in the name there, and yeah, you're just like you say something, people react. You say they react. It's so interactive and so much fun. Cool. Thank you so much, Tom.
It sounds like we're concluding. That hour went by quick. So I want to ask you a question because we're also going to share this with my audience. What do you think is the biggest or a big misconception that people have of Natasha, entrepreneur in the Ukraine, doing her thing? What do you think is a misconception someone has of an entrepreneur in the Ukraine, Natasha doing their thing? What do you think is a misconception people have?
Interesting. I'm not sure, but what I think is that I am this super energetic person, always never having any problems, just super happy all the time. And it just comes easy to me and I can speak without fear. And I've always been confident and never had any problems with speaking, because that's not always true. I know that I'm an optimistic person and really energetic, but at the same time, I had a lot of challenges that I had to go through and hard moments. And there are times when I have a lot of insecurities and I have imposter syndrome, just like everybody else. And I get nervous before speaking. Almost every time before speaking, I get this little bit of nervousness, especially if it's something new. So I have all those weaknesses, and I do kind of come across like this very super energetic person, which is true. I mean, it's not like I'm faking, but still underneath there are insecurities, and confidence is something that I had to work on and develop all the time. And over the years. So I just hope that this inspires somebody who thinks that confidence is something you are born with and you can't develop it, or that a certain energy or public speaking skills is something that you just have to have as a talent or a gift from your birth. So these are skills. A lot of
That's
these
awesome.
things are skills, and optimism, positivity, this positive thinking, it's a skill, and it's an important and necessary skill that you've got to develop if you want to be a healthy person, because I know that my optimism helped me also with my physical health and my mentality, my mindset, and business and everything. So that's also a skill. You can develop that.
I think also here in the States, the propaganda machine, specifically against the Ukraine, paints a picture of people who are in the Ukraine where I think people in the States just think, oh, people are just like in broken, war-torn homes. There's not anything going on there. I do think that's the stereotype. So I think it's awesome that
I haven't even thought of that, just because I guess maybe because I think of myself as like a global citizen, because I was born in Russia and I've lived in Ukraine for a long time, but also like my business is in the US and I travel to other countries. But I am a Ukrainian citizen, like by my passport. And there are a lot of misconceptions about Ukrainians. Like about Ukrainian women also.
Yes.
Ooh, these women want to marry Americans or want to marry, like, no. I don't care about even marrying anybody, but it's like, there is this misconception about like women that they need to be married, they need to have children, and Ukrainian women that they are looking for some guys. See, but like I went even different direction.
That's why I wanted you to speak on it, because I like how it humanizes, and that's the power of storytelling, is that we all have this like image of, oh, people like this and that live there are like that. And it just goes unchallenged. And it's often, and then, it's our job then, as those of us listening who might be thinking, oh, wow, now that Tom pointed that out, I did have that perception. It's our job now to trace back who put that in our heads. You know what I mean? And to look for other stories so that you don't become our only story that challenges it. So I just wanted to put that out, because I appreciate that.
Thank you for asking that. Yeah, because actually, especially before, I know with Trump and his relationship with one of our politicians, like I don't even know that much because I'm not too much into politics. I try to kind of stay away a little bit. There were some misconceptions what people thought about Ukrainians, I guess, and like this whole war going on. So thank you for asking that.
Of course.
No, we are much more than that. And Ukrainian people are super cool and feisty and strong, and we love freedom. That's why we don't want Russia to take over Ukraine. And very freedom-loving people, but with, of course, our weaknesses, just like in every nation. There are certain things.
That was awesome. I love this. That was your spoken word poem.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I love, I was born in Russia, so there are still people who I love, but I can't stand Russian politics and the president and what he is doing and what they're doing. So I'm going to speak up. Absolutely. I mean, there's nothing to hide in that. I mean, that's horrible what Putin is doing. And if people don't know, so those people who think that he is a good guy or he is in any way good, they just don't know. So you guys better read the right stuff, because Facebook is flooded with Russian bots and accounts, so they really try to affect the world. So be careful with that. That's my spoken word.
When I run this interview as an ad, I'm curious to see if the algorithm flags up any Russian bots for us.
Ooh, wow. That's
awesome.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much for letting me speak up.
Of course. I wanted to ask. I know I was going to find a way to ask. So
yes, I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Tom. And I'm super, super thankful for you for being here on the podcast and for making it special and really unique. And I hope we can do it again some other time, because I have great plans for this podcast, for this show, and my business. Thank you for contributing so much to my future and my success, and so many other awesome people in the program, in the Retargeting Runway program, Facebook ads. And to all of you listening, thank you so much for being with us. Continue tuning in because there will be a lot of incredible interviews. Subscribe, leave us the 5-star rating and a review, and continue being strong and confident. Speak up and speak with power.
Natasha, that was such an awesome interview. I love your sign off. Want to thank you so much for the opportunity to be a guest. As you know, we were sharing this with my audience. And so I do have a question that I ask every single guest as we sign off. And so that is, what is your invitation? What would you like to invite people to consider, to do, to think about, to become, to evolve into? What's your invitation?
I would like to invite them to speak their mind. You just heard, you guys, how without even knowing it, I had a chance to say something that was on my heart or was in my mind. So speak up, share what is really important to you. Don't hold it back, because a lot of times it sits there and it needs to come out. So say it, find the audience that needs to hear this. Speak up. And also, if you're an entrepreneur, you need to know that public speaking is important in so many areas of your entrepreneurship journey. So find a way to develop this skill. It's something that you can grow, you can develop. And you can work with me, you can work with any other coach. Find a program, a coach, a trainer who can help you become a better public speaker, but speak. Go out there and share your message with the world, with your potential clients, with your followers, but share what's there in your mind, in your heart, because I'm sure that you have a lot to share and you have incredible power. That's why I always say, go there and speak with confidence and speak with power. Thank you.
Yes, I love that. And where can folks listen to the podcast? Where can folks follow you on Instagram? Where can they do that?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I'm Natasha Bazilevych on Facebook, and I'm Nat Bazilevych on Instagram. So they can follow me, and I have a website where they can go. That's my digital home. That's also natashabazilevych.com, and we can post the links.
Okay, we'll definitely do that because that was quick. So for my folks who aren't as good at spelling as I am, or like me, we're going to have show notes, tomearl.me/ we'll do then the nickname you said, tomearl.me/Nat, N-A-T, tomearl.me/Nat is where you'll find the links to Natasha's podcast, her social, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. If I say it, usually, I can do it like Basil, but with a Z. Basil with a Z. That's like my last name. It's usually harder for people to say my last name. And then E-V-Y-C-H. So that's Bazilevych. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Well, Natasha, thank you so much for allowing me to be on your podcast and for allowing me to share with my listeners. This is probably one of my favorite interviews that I got to be interviewed on. So I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Oh, this was incredible. Absolutely. I just loved the whole experience and getting to know you better. Thank you.
And to all those listening, as always, we're wishing you peace and blessings. Thank you. One more thing. I'd love to continue the conversation. Feel free to join me at tomearl.com/join. Subscribe below, or let's connect on social media. Tom Earl Artist. Thanks again for watching.